Impact on purpose. Change your home and your dome by following in Jesus' footsteps. I'm your host, VJ Tunkel. Let's get started. All right, Doyle, thanks for being back with me right after we finished the first recording. I figured it'd be really fun if we sat down and did a real counseling session. One, because it's free for me, and two, to show everyone how you put into practice all those questions, or some of those questions that you were talking about in the last segment. So I'm going to let you start, and however you start. If I just sat down in your office, I'm going to let you run with it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, assuming this is the first time we ever met,
Okay.
So VJ, you're coming in, and so I'd like you to tell me a little bit about why you're here, what's going on, and this is your time. So you let me know how you feel I can help you or where you feel like you need some help.
Okay. I have noticed and have been told that I have a problem when it comes to confrontation. When I have a problem with someone, or I'm offended by someone, or even when I know it's possible that I have hurt someone else, I have a really hard time approaching that conversation in real life. Not in my head. In my head, I'm really good at it. And it leads me to a place where I'm complaining or fixing or identifying other people's problems a lot and never actually doing any real life good.
Mm-hmm. So, are there certain situations where it happens the most, like with certain people or certain circumstances?
We're around our extended family the most. Emily, my wife's extended family the most. So just those are the relationships that I have the most time with, and plus work, I guess, as well. So in all those close relationships, or at least frequent amount of time relationships, those are the problems. Specifically, an example is we went away a couple weeks ago with our family, and I said something to my brother-in-law's kid, and I thought he was offended by what I said, and I wasn't sure why, and so I spent a whole day and a half probably thinking about what I might have done wrong, how to talk about it with him, and all of that, and all the aspects that I could think of before I actually worked up the courage to actually say something. And the weird part is, I think I came to a solution pretty early on in that thought process, and I could have talked to him 25 minutes later, but I couldn't get past the thinking to the actual doing.
So did you actually end up talking to him?
I did, miraculously. I can't believe I did, but
Yeah.
it was due to a long, awkward silence. Not awkward, but it was awkward for me. A long silence between the four of us. We were just sitting, finally resting during a baby's nap time, probably.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, all right, I gotta say something now. And I did.
And how did that end up going?
It turned out he wasn't offended at all, and that I was worried for no reason.
A lot of wasted time,
Yep.
wasted energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I have.
Right.
Whether it's real or imagined, it's still the same reality for me as far as putting it into practice.
Mm-hmm. So, has this been a pattern for you for a long time in situations?
Yeah, I would say yes. I would say overwhelmingly yes.
Mm-hmm. And have you experienced being on the other end of being confronted?
I don't think I get confronted that often. I can't think of a lot of situations at work where I've gotten confronted for something wrong, but I have. And they always, of course, make me afraid of what could happen. In our personal lives, there's not a lot of times, especially recently, that's happened. Mostly because Emily is a very loving and kind person.
Mm-hmm.
And she brings stuff to my attention in a very loving and gentle way.
But does she bring stuff to your attention that could be interpreted as confrontation?
I don't know that she does, because I think she also has a similar weakness with confrontation. That's seems to be what we've both come to the agreement on.
Okay.
Is that in our marriage we fill each other's weaknesses in a lot of areas, but this is one clear area where we both have a similar weakness.
Okay. So I think you already know, but just to kind of review something here, the different styles of communication. One is being passive, which is what seems to be what you're describing, and another is aggressive, which you don't tend to be aggressive in a situation like this where you just bull through situations or people. The other is passive aggressive, which is actually the most dangerous of the three, because you might say to your brother-in-law, like, in order to avoid having the conversation you're supposed to have, you might say, yeah, some kids, they
Right.
they take care of things like they're supposed to, which is an underhanded way of trying to say your kid is not doing a very good job. And that's just being blatantly dishonest in a way, because you're not really saying what you feel. The best form of communication is being assertive. But the key to being assertive goes back to the question of why. Why am I trying to communicate?
The problem is I know the answer to this question because I believe it. I believe it so deeply that that the priority of my relationships, this is posted in my house, is connection. The number one priority in a relationship is connection.
Right.
And I believe it until the second where I'm looking that person in the eye and have to open my mouth and say words.
Okay. So when you finally talked to your brother-in-law, tell me how you said to him what you needed to say.
I said, hey, by the way, I'm sorry for what I said the other day. This is where I was coming from. I thought I was following the kind of guideline that you guys had laid out for this situation with him. But I'm sorry I'm sorry that I didn't say it in a way that was encouraging.
Okay. So maybe you could insert something prior to that part of what you said, because what you said was fine. And maybe this will help you get over the gap of time it took to get there. And that is using the word connection in your conversation with him in that situation. You could have said, right now, obviously, my priority of connection, and it's important for me to feel connected to people, feel connected to you, especially as my brother-in-law and confidant and colleague and everything else. And there's circumstance that just occurred. I'm feeling disconnected. The key is using the word I. I'm feeling disconnected. I've created a situation where I feel disconnected, and I just need to go over what happened because I want to make sure that you're not feeling disconnected. I want to make sure that we're not missing each other, and I've created a situation, and I'm uncomfortable right now, and I need to explore why and where that's coming from. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It sounds really good. It sounds really hard too. Yeah, I like that starting with that is just a truth. It's not even specific to a situation. It's just my priority is connection. And then you go a little bit deeper, and yeah, by the time you got to saying I'm uncomfortable or I feel disconnected, those are the harder parts for me. But you start the process so softly that it made it seem easier to get into that way.
Well, you start the process softly, but maybe there's a step back that we need to go a little further. Because you're telling me that the priority is connection, but then you're not living that out.
I know.
You're talking about whatever it was, a day and a half went by. It's like priority of connection gets diminished further and further. So maybe it's going back a little deeper than that, and that is asking some questions. First of all, what are you afraid of? And why is connection a priority?
That's a good question. I'm going to answer it in reverse because I need more time to think of what I'm afraid of. connection's a priority because it's the essence of any healthy relationship. If there is anything else at the top of a priority relationship, then it's not a mutual relationship. It could be um, one-sided. It could be um, unhealthy. It could be broken. It could be anything. But if understanding and relationship and connection are not at the top of the interactions between two people, then it's not a deep, healthy relationship. That's what I know about that. Um, as far as what I'm afraid of, I'm afraid of being wrong. I'm afraid of. Actually, it's probably that. Let's just start with that because I don't think I have anything else on the top of my head on this topic. I'm afraid of being wrong. Yeah, I'm afraid of doing or being wrong in the wrong.
So what if there's something that you need to be more afraid of than being wrong?
Mm. Like what?
Like having a broken relationship. Isn't that a more important thing to be afraid of?
Yeah, that's good.
So maybe the deeper issue or the principle that you need to apply a little bit more is I'm going to make it a principle to have a short account with everybody. So in that situation, you did something with his son, you felt something was off. And so your life value is something's off. I need to have a short account. That means I can't go an hour, a day and a half having a feeling that we're off, even if we're not.
Right.
Just, I can't let that happen. And I'll just share an example. I have a longtime friend. One of the things that I learned from him modeling this early on was we would be in a conversation about something. And more often than not, I didn't even realize that he felt like he had offended me about something. But there was never a time where more than 12 hours went by. I mean, I'm talking about didn't go overnight. It was like he would come to me like almost immediately within the hour of a conversation and say, hey, listen, I just need to tell you, Doyle, that I felt like I was a little strong, how I came across, or I said something about someone that I shouldn't have said, and I just want to ask your forgiveness. And I'm like, I can't tell you how many times I said to him, Peter, I don't really have anything to forgive you for, but I forgive you. It's okay. Yeah. I'm fine. But it taught me a lot because his value was not only about our connection, but it was deeper than that. It was keeping a short account. He didn't want to have anything in his account registry that said that there was a broken relationship. And so he worked really hard at making sure that that was not happening. And so that became, that when that becomes a very important priority, what I'm hoping and suggesting that is that it would help diminish the fear. Because what you had was, you had a situation where if you'd gone to your brother-in-law and say, hey, listen, something's bothering me, and I don't want to have a broken relationship with you because your relationship to me is important. So here's what happened, and if I was out of line or whatever, I'm sorry for what I did, and I want to ask your forgiveness. If you were wrong, he can go, yeah, I'm glad you talked to me, because I was really ticked off over what you did. And then you got it clear, the air's clear. If you hadn't done anything wrong, which it sounds like that's what happened, he goes, like I did so many times, like, no, what you did was fine. I didn't have any problem. Then you realize it wasn't the relationship that was the problem. It was you,
Yeah.
Carrying the fear about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would help or not, but that's something you might consider.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what you're saying comes down to the thing that you said that stuck with me the most is maybe there's something worth being afraid of more than being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely something that I'm going to try to apply.
Yeah, and I think the thing you need to be more afraid of is having an unresolved conflict.
Yeah.
because that's really what you have. And if you think about it from a biblical principle, I'm using this as an application. Ephesians 4 says, not to let the sun set on your anger. Well, I think you can draw from that an application that says, don't let the sun set on conflict.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, keep conflict resolved. Don't let too much time go where there's unresolved conflict. What you're describing is you've got conflict in your own heart or your own emotions. That's an unresolved conflict. And you're not going to function. You probably didn't do this to your brother-in-law, but your brother-in-law, you could have times where he goes, yeah, I was wondering why you were acting like you're acting. Because they had no idea there was a problem. The problem was all inside you.
Right.
And so whether it's resolving conflict in your own heart and emotions or actually a literal conflict, let's reverse it. Let's say it was something he did to you.
Just as hard.
Right. But if the principle is, I don't want there to be a conflict between us, if that's the starting point, I'm not saying it makes it easier, but it becomes an important way to leverage, hey, our relationship is affected right now because of the way I'm interpreting what you did. And I don't want to have this feeling towards you. I don't want to misunderstand what your intention was. And it goes back to, you and I have talked about this before in other settings in Danny Silk's book, Keep Your Love On. It's the question of, or the statement, this is what I need from you right now. I need to know that that's not what you intended, or that's, and the funny thing, you probably do with Emily all the time without saying those words, but it's kind of what happens is, this is what I need from you right now.
I do say it in those words a lot of times.
Okay, well, apply the same principle. It's taking that situation again, this is what I need from you right now with your brother-in-law. This is what I need because this is what happened. If it's flipped and he's offended you, it's the same thing. It's just I'm feeling off in our relationship and I need to know something. I need this from you right now. Let me say this, ask you this question. You said you're afraid of being hurt.
Being wrong.
Being wrong, how many times have you been wrong?
In general? Or in relationship?
In relationship, in those circumstances. How many times in similar type situations have you been wrong?
Definitely not the majority, but plenty, definitely enough to, I guess not in those relationships a ton. A lot. I felt wrong a lot in my growing up years. But no, it's definitely the minority of the times in my modern current relationships.
Tell me about your growing up years now. What are you talking about?
I felt like I was a problem in general for my parents a lot. So I felt like I was in the wrong a lot. And a lot of times I was in the wrong. But that was kind of one of the general senses I walked away from my childhood from is it's better to just not be seen than to be seen doing something wrong.
Okay. But now you work hard at relationships and making sure there's a short account. I know you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening, I wonder if what's happening, VJ, is, you've got this template of what it was like growing up, and you're putting the template over the top of what you're doing now, and you're adjusting what you need to do in this situation. You're adjusting what you need to do to your past. And you're not the same person.
Right.
You're not functioning the same way in relationships like you did growing up. It's different. And so that's where that's coming from. So maybe that's another thing to think about is, the fear of being wrong isn't because of your brother-in-law. It's coming from another source. And it's a different circumstance. You're a different person.
Yeah.
It's a family of origin issue.
Right. Yeah, I had a feeling about that.
So that's something to look at too. And what you can do with that is take some time to look at those past issues and say, it doesn't mean you even have to have a conversation with your parents about this, but you can say, I will. You can say, Lord, help me know anywhere where I was wrong, and I want to be ask your forgiveness for it. For my attitude, whatever, where I deserve to be criticized because of the way I was acting or whatever, and I just want to start with a clean slate, so it's not filtering into other conversations.
Yeah.
Get that out of just get that baggage off the table.
Yeah.
So you're not carrying it into other relationships.
Yeah, I definitely I make an effort of breaking agreements when I hear them come up,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to definitely think about what the core lie there is.
Yeah. So I don't know what to suggest from here. I'm not suggesting that you create a conflict to try this. But I think that you can kind of practice it like with Emily. You can just go, even when you guys are doing your check-ins and how are we doing, ask yourself the question, I want to keep a short account with Emily. Is my account clear?
Mm-hmm.
Is her account clear with me? And then maybe expand it in conversation with Emily. Say, help me know. Do you think I'm doing okay, like with our extended family? Do you see anything that I'm avoiding that I need to press into? Because I don't want any of that to hang over my relationships.
Yeah, that's really good.
So try that.
I will try that.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. So enough to cover for now.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here and for lending your time. I hope that people who heard this kind of got a glimpse into what that process looks like, and hopefully a lot of help from it.